Hide your wives, hide your kids. Bob Baffert is back, and he's coming for a graded stakes race near you. Salutations and welcome, friends. I'm your host of this special episode of Trust the Profits. My name is Matthew DeSantis. You can find me on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace. Before we get into this Bob Baffert video, make sure to press that subscribe button here on YouTube to get all of our content here for Trust the Profits as we lead up to the Preakness and well beyond. We have you covered throughout the Triple Crown, international racing, domestic racing. We got you covered from handicapping and horse racing news to live betting on Thursday nights. A lot of great content coming up. A lot of exciting partnerships we're on the verge of announcing. So really excited for all the things going on with Trust the Profits. Lots of new people on the network as well. Jessica Tugwell with her pedigree puzzle every single week. A lot of great content. Make sure to press that subscribe button. Make sure to like this video and comment below with what do you think the rest of the year is going to look like for Bob Baffert? And listen, I am not one for clickbait. I am not one for being over the top and speaking in hyperbole. I am very measured when I do these types of videos. When I do any video for Trust the Profits, I'm acutely aware of who's out there listening and about putting things out there into the public realm. I don't like making accusations if I know they're unfounded. I don't like just throwing around and brandishing certain types of words in this community. That being said, when I thought about Bob Baffert returning to classical racing in terms of running in the Triple Crown and having a horse obviously in the Preakness in the form of National Treasure, maybe I am projecting, but I went on a little bit of a detour and I want to talk to you about this, about the Bob Baffert Revenge Tour. And it is an interesting place that we find ourselves in here in May in 2023. Because as we all know, 2 years ago, there was the positive test for Medina Spirit. And that led to a slew of court cases and a lot of lawyers getting really rich on this process. And I say that as the son and grandson of lawyers. And I know all about lawyers getting rich off legal processes. But it led to a really ongoing legal battle with not just Churchill Downs, but the Commonwealth and the State Gaming Commission in Kentucky, as well as up in New York. There was separate cases up in New York that were taking place as well, if you remember. This was something that dominated the news headlines, obviously, and rightfully so. We had a Kentucky Derby winner stripped of their title, and the second place finisher, Mandaloun, was declared the winner. The result was a 2-year suspension from Bob Baffert entering any horses at Churchill Downs. Couldn't enter horses in the Kentucky Derby. We saw what happened the last 2 years. Trained horses leading up, Messier, Taba, Reincarnate, and then transferred them to other barns, notably Tim Yakteens. As soon as the Kentucky Derby was over, those horses went right back to Bob Baffert. In the case of Taba, went on to win 2 more Grade 1 races under Bob Baffert. Pennsylvania Derby to Malibu Stakes. Now the suspensions are over. It's May 2023, and in the headlines in horse racing, we have the horse that was the Kentucky Derby favorite being scratched because of a health issue, only to find out 24 hours later that the horse tested positive for one of his biggest victories as a 2-year-old in the Hopeful Stakes. We have a trainer that is indefinitely suspended from entering horses at Churchill Downs in the form of Saffie Joseph Jr. We have 7 horse deaths over 9 days at Churchill Downs. Bob Baffert hasn't been anywhere near any of those stories. And yet that is still where we find ourselves. Without Bob Baffert in the Kentucky Derby, without Bob Baffert in the Triple Crown, doping, overages, horse deaths, suspensions, shady trainers, repo rocks is running out of the skin up in New York. Nobody's blinking an eye at that. No Bob Baffert to be seen there. The idea that somehow the ills of this sport would be cleansed if we could just get rid of Bob Baffert. Now, I am not a Baffert apologist by any stretch, but I also understand the situation that we find ourselves in, and I am somewhat incredulous over the naivete of people who thought that a suspension of Bob Baffert would solve all of our ills in this sport. We have to go after a lot of other people in this sport. We have to actually go after people at lower level tracks, lower level trainers who are doing even more egregious things, I would argue, on a much more daily basis and without any oversight or without hardly a fraction of the oversight that someone like Bob Baffert has out in California, even if you believe California is a little bit of a shelter for him. Now, listen, the reason I wanted to talk about this Bob Baffert revenge tour is because Bob has to see this. He sees the headlines. Positive tests for Kentucky Derby favorites, horse deaths, shady trainers being suspended, horses all of a sudden finding brand new form under new trainers. He sees all of this. Bob Baffert is a man of incredible ego and incredible pride, and I don't say that in a negative light. Anyone who has ascended to any level of success in their profession has an amount of ego. Some healthy, some unhealthy, okay? But everybody has a level of ego, especially when you reach the heights of your profession. Bob Baffert would love nothing more than showing up in Baltimore at Pimlico on Saturday, May 20th with National Treasure in tow, and he's going, hey guys, I'm back. By the way, I've won this race a record 7 times. And now I'm bringing in my monster from California, and we're going to win it 8 times. Nothing, I am sure, would be sweeter for him than winning the Preakness Stakes with a horse like National Treasure. Do I think National Treasure is a monster? No, I don't. I think National Treasure is a really good horse. I think the race actually is setting up incredibly well for him. Now, especially with the late breaking news, the confidence game has scratched. There's almost no early speed in the race. National Treasure should be right on the lead, which is a perfect position on this Pimlico track, which is very speed favoring right now. 5 of the 6 winners on opening day on the dirt, gate to wire. Come on. I told you, they're souping this track up. People in the comments were saying, oh, how can you say they soup the track up? Trust me, they're souping the track up. That's what they do at Pimlico. It is set up for him to rain on the parade of Mage, to rain on the feel-good story of Mage. All the Venezuelan flags, all the feel-good stories. And listen, I love it too. I love the feel-good stories of Mage. I would love to be able to say to my family members and friends when I'm older, oh, I was there when Mage lost the Florida Derby to Forte but I saw the horse that went on to win the Triple Crown. That'd be great. I can say I saw the horse that won the Kentucky Derby lose the race right before that. That's a pretty cool story. But listen, we're all rooting for Mage. I think it's natural to root for a Triple Crown winner, unless you're just a contrarian. And I know there's a few of you out there like that. But listen, Bob Baffert is going to be on a mission. He is on a mission. And that mission is to win everything in sight, I would imagine. Everything that is not nailed down, he is going to try to win. And I do think it starts this coming Saturday at the Preakness Stakes with National Treasure. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Because he's got a crop of 2-year-olds, folks, that we're just starting to get a glimpse of. We saw him train the other day. XBTV made him the highlight workout of the day. Miramati, one of them. Dothraki, another one of them. They have these horses, and they have the Baffert train hasn't slowed down. The thought that somehow this 2-year suspension would convince owners not to send them their best stock, that didn't work at all. That's pretty obvious. He's getting the best, most precocious, most classically bred horses in his barn still. And he's got a crop of 2-year-olds. And you think Bob Baffert doesn't want to roll into Churchill Downs next year? You think he doesn't want to come in with not one, not two, you think he doesn't want to come in with a fleet of horses next year and just stick it to Churchill Downs? I guarantee you that, even if he won't admit it, I guarantee you he would relish that opportunity, as I think many of us would if we found ourselves in a similar position to Bob Baffert. Again, I'm not apologizing for the positive tests. I'm not apologizing for what he's done in the past. I'm not apologizing for his actions or his words or his sometimes, in my opinion, rather lame defenses. I'm just saying we find ourselves in arguably one of the more dire positions we've been in recently in the sport. And yet we've supposedly suspended the bad guy the last 2 years from the biggest day. And yet positive tests remain. Horse deaths remain. Trainers being indefinitely suspended from tracks remain. Very obvious cases of horses finding an extra gear remain. The same issues that plagued us in 2021 still plague us in 2023. And Churchill Downs suspending Bob Baffert, no matter how good it might have made you feel, no matter how much it might have filled you with some amount of justice inside, didn't change anything. Not really. And now he's back. The bad man is back. And he is going to want to exert a level of revenge, even if it is not in the traditional sense. He is going to want to exert his dominance over the rest of the trainers that are out there. He wants to show the Pletchers and the Asmussens and the Browns of the world what he is all about, and go back to dominating and winning on the sport's biggest days. And oh, by the way, where's the Breeders' Cup the next 2 years? Right in his backyard. Santa Anita this year, Del Mar next year. You think Bob's not going to have his horses ready to roll for those races? We don't even talk about a horse like Faustin. Haven't seen him. Horse like Cave Rock, very lightly worked. National Treasure coming back. Listen, Reincarnate's going to be back in his barn shortly. The transfer back is going to start happening. He's going to get this 3-year-old crop back in his barn, and who knows what's going to happen then. The 2-year-olds are coming. It's just a matter of time. So get ready to say the name Bob Baffert a lot when we start talking about classic racing. Listen, that's going to do it for me in this episode. Had to drop a little bit of perspective, had to drop a little bit of an opinion on you. Usually it's our boy El Hombre who drops these types of pieces, but I felt strongly about this. I really did, because I looked at the headlines and I thought, what good has the last 2 years really done in terms of a suspension? We find ourselves defending the sport more now than ever. Bob Baffert hasn't been anywhere. Now he's back, and he's probably got a chip on his shoulder, a pretty big chip on his shoulder. So watch out. All right, that's going to do it for me. Make sure to press that subscribe button here on YouTube. Make sure to like this video and comment below with, hey, maybe you think I'm completely off base. Maybe you think the Baffert thing's overblown. Maybe you think it doesn't matter. Maybe you think he's not going to, he's just going to go, okay, I'm back. It's not a big deal. Let me know. I'd love to hear your opinions on this. I really, truly would. All right, folks, until next time, my name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and profitable day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.